Hello, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's Onepoint Oneness session. My name is Els, and I'm a member of the team at Onepoint Consulting. For those of you who are here for the first time, many of us at Onepoint Consulting are meditating on a regular basis, and we find this to be very beneficial in our lives. The meditation we practice is based on the teachings of Raja Yoga, which is in fact yoga for the mind. Some time ago, the thought came that it would be great if we could share some of these helpful insights and methods with a larger audience. And that's how Onepoint Oneness was born. What we do is every week we invite an experienced meditator and we ask them to share some of their thoughts on a particular topic, but also to lead us into a guided meditation. So I'm very pleased to welcome today Neville Hodgkinson as our speaker. Neville will be talking about happiness in relationships. Neville is an author and a journalist, and he has been meditating for more than 40 years. For most of his career, he has specialized in writing about health and medicine. His books include Will to be Well, the Real Alternative Medicine. Another one was AIDS, the Failure of Contemporary Science. And a more recent book was I Know How to Live and I Know How to Die, with the teachings of Daddy Yankee. Neville was married to Liz Hodgkinson, also an author and a journalist, for 25 years. They have two sons and now 5 grandchildren. So very warm welcome to you, Neville.
Thank you very much, Els. It's great to be with you and to share something on this topic of, just make sure the sound is good, on this topic of actually it's creating happiness in relationships. And this is a very important word because very often our relationships get into difficulty when we look for happiness in relationships. It's like you're going out trying to fill something in yourself from another. But if you can actually make yourself more complete through understanding yourself in a deeper way and through the kind of practices that Onepoint Oneness advocates and shares, then a very different approach can happen to life where you have what you need kind of thing internally, and you're much better able to share something with others from that place of strength. So instead of dependencies and neediness, you approach relationships with much more, well, it doesn't happen overnight, but much more with an attitude of how can I help here? How can I improve matters, or in the workplace or in personal relationships? Let me really try and understand my partner or my family so that I can be of best support to them, rather than thinking of themselves as some kind of extension of yourself and getting angry or upset because they're not doing the things that you feel will bring credit to you. This is a very big shift to take. And meditation, as I've learned it, has really helped me enormously in making this shift. It made me much more easy and accepting and supportive of others, whereas in the past, I think I often had, even if I didn't speak it out, I often had quite an internal critical commentary going on inside me about others. And in a funny way, that actually reaches others. So I've been studying this yoga for the mind for many years. And really the core thing that I'm grateful to it for is that it's freed me from a very insecure ego self. I feel that ego self meant that I was always trying to prove myself in one way or another. And it made me vulnerable, both at work and in the home. And then I found, thanks to meditation teachers, that there is a kind of wellspring of happiness that's actually within our minds, and it's intrinsically creative. It's a bit like many babies and young children show this. You know how creative they are in entertaining themselves. You see a young girl skipping, you know, just with joy, just comes from inside. And then later the prison gates of our adult mentality, which is really when we develop this ego sense of identity, which often has these defensive armor around it, because life can sometimes knock us around and hurt us. And so we put up these armor plates to protect ourselves. So meditation for me is all about learning to access this beautiful inner energy, to drink at this well. Another way of putting it is to experience the higher self and actually to go beyond the brain. I've didn't understand this for some time, but I've understood now that the self that we acquire through the conditioning that we experience in childhood and school and the workplace, that self is a kind of memory that becomes built into the brain. But there's a deeper self, and those painful, sometimes necessary mechanisms of self-defense that the ego may provide, it's very good not to be completely taken in by them, because otherwise, if you lose contact with the deeper self, you lose that wellspring of creativity. And then that's when we tend to fall into the trap of looking for our happiness, demanding our happiness sometimes from others, from outside. So I was helped by listening to meditation experiences at first, but the real shift for me came when the penny dropped. And because I worked as a science writer, science correspondent in the newspapers, I had a very materialistic outlook. But eventually the penny really dropped that I am actually not the brain. I'm not my brain. I'm something deeper than that. And that I come from the frontiers of science, they're calling it the consciousness-based paradigm. I come from a realm of consciousness. There's not like just everyday consciousness, whether you're awake or asleep, but it's like a deep awareness, a deep level of being. And there's an intrinsic goodness in that. And when I connect my mind to that, I fill with a strength that then allows me to manage my brain and my ego and my relationships with much more creativity and constructiveness, rather than be driven by the tendencies that I'd inherited from the past. So science has been very focused. I'm not going to go into this today, but science has been very focused on matter, as you know. But actually, this new way of looking at things brings the mind to center stage. And I found that very helpful, actually, to study some of that, you know, from the near-death experience when people die clinically and come back to tell the tale of going into an expanded realm of consciousness. There's drug studies, certain drugs that they're not produced, but the impact is not produced by the brain. In fact, they've shown that it's when key parts of the brain shut down, that these wonderful psychedelic experiences become available to some. And also quantum theory, which you probably heard about, it's been telling us for 100 years or more that that actually mind and matter are very deeply related. So it's not that I'm trying to dissolve my memories in my brain. I need an ego structure to live, but it's important to step back from it from time to time. That's what meditation is. There's a wonderful saying by an Elizabethan poet, Sir Philip Sidney, that meditation means it's to grow rich in that which never taketh rust. There's something really deep and beautiful in it. And William Blake, I must tell you a few lines from William Blake. He wrote, "He who bends to himself a joy," that's like when you look for happiness outside of yourself, "doth the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies," you know, you can enjoy, but you're not trying to grab it. He who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. It's like a sense of an eternal dawn. And that's what I've been gradually learning to do over these years. I've been given a very specific understanding by my spiritual guides that a sort of universal mind energy or consciousness puts on this show of life. And each one of us is an individual expression of that mind, a unique spirit or soul. And peace and happiness are intrinsic to this universal consciousness. But when I let the physical side of life dominate my mind too much, then I lose those qualities and I become more vulnerable and hurt and unable to sustain good relationships, actually. So I'd like us to meditate on this a little bit, on paying attention to giving the self more chance to experience those intrinsic qualities. And then that frees me from that neediness and allows me to bring happiness to my relationships. And there's no greater happiness, actually, than being able to give like that. So I will share a few thoughts that indicate the kind of processes that I've learned to practice that take my mind into that well, allow me to drink at that well of a deeper truth than my ego allows me in an everyday sense. So one of the thoughts that I enjoy is, I have a brain, but I'm not my brain. I have a brain, but I'm not my brain. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I'm not just some airy-fairy consciousness on a cloud. I am a spiritual being and I'm having a human experience. What an incredible treasure. What a shift from just thinking that you're only Neville, only this body. I'm part of something much wider and deeper. As I develop this awareness that I no longer need to identify with the thoughts and feelings that my brain is presenting me to. As I develop this awareness, I become more and more able to take hold of the reins of my mind. I'm sipping at that well where peace and happiness are in abundance. This peace and happiness fill my whole brain and body when I have a powerful time in meditation. They change the mindset with which I'm living. There's a kind of resonance that goes from the inner being through into the matter of the human. I access this positive experience if it is proving difficult because of mundane concerns, by deliberately choosing thoughts of a positive nature, such as, it's great to be alive, if that one works for you, or it's so beautiful to be sharing these things with all of you this morning as you go about your everyday business. There's that hope that something of this will be of help, as it has been of so much help to me. So an attitude of gratitude or similar positive experiences and feelings take you into the zone where this positive energy is accessed. Whereas worry, upset, criticism, anger, irritation, all of those very human feelings act as blocks on my ability to drink from that well. So I learn, with the help of this strength that I get as I discover how to connect with this deep source of creative consciousness, I learn that I can displace my negativity with these kind of practices. And when I lose it, I know how to get back into that territory of peace and positivity and the happiness that comes from being able to live life with this strength rather than being in that state of neediness. One of the tools that I've learned is to consider myself as like an actor in a play. I've always been very impressed with the way top people in business often have a kind of detachment about their role, whereby even though they're obviously engaged and doing their best, but they call themselves players. And this is a good attitude. It's something that held me back in my own career. I was always a specialist writer dealing with my own sphere of operation, and I loved that. But I used to admire the senior people who could handle many others with and many setbacks that come every day in business, as well as the advances. They could handle them, they could shrug them off, they could just take them as part of the game. So a consciousness of being an actor on this stage of life. Bring that into your everyday being, and that helps to keep you connected to the deeper self, the higher self, and not to become bound by the past experience imprinted in your brain. An actor doesn't treat his part with disdain. Whatever the part, he seeks to play it to his best. If at times he's a hero, that's fine. If at times he's a villain, that's also fine. I need that attitude towards myself too. That whatever comes in front of me and whatever parts those around me are playing, to know that they are actually these beings of a higher consciousness that sometimes forget that in playing the parts on the stage, but that is also okay. Everything is okay. This gives me the strength to overcome adversity, not to be too sensitive to criticism, but to learn and to generate that positive frame of mind in which I bring happiness to those around me. the science hasn't caught up with this yet. Perhaps it never will, even though it is now really understanding the importance of mind in our universe. But there is an understanding that I've also learned through my spiritual guides, that there is a point of unchanging consciousness, a higher consciousness that never loses its power. And this is very helpful because, like myself, most people feel that life has depleted them of some of their ability to live as they would really like to do constantly with that happiness. But when we learn to connect our minds, our individual minds, with that source, then it's as if we can draw strength from that companionship, so that even though my strength may not be enough to handle the situation, with that one beside me, I can. This is a subtle understanding, something that only came to me after a good number of years of practice, although I was a slow learner. The core of it is to know oneself as distinct from the brain, an individuated consciousness that is playing a part on this stage of the world, and that has those qualities of joy, love, and peace as original and always available, providing I learn how to step aside from the limitations of my brain. I hope this makes some sense, and that something of this will be useful as you move into your own day. And congratulations on finding these Onepoint Oneness half hours. I think they're highly valuable. I think perhaps now there's no, there isn't actually a is there an opportunity for questions else, or is it more now that your closing comments?
No, we can I mean, people can send any questions in a feedback form, which we post in the YouTube channel.
Oh, I see.
I mean, thank you so much. It was a very beautiful session. And what touched me was when you talked about what we feel and what we think actually reaches others. And I think we're often not aware of that our mind is very powerful. And often when we struggle in relationships, we just don't realize that we are actually part of the struggle in the way of how we perceive other people, how we think about them. And I think another very powerful statement you made was that I'm a spiritual being with a human experience. And I think that is a very powerful idea to further explore and look into it. And also when you talked about the brain and you've done a lot of medical research, it's important to realize we are not the brain, and to connect with the deeper self. And that is what we practice in meditation. So I think these are very powerful ideas to take away with us for today, to think about, to explore. And you also talked about the whole idea of we are actors and we should see other people also as people or actors playing a role. And if I can practice the idea that I'm a spiritual being with a human experience, maybe I should also practice then in seeing other people in the same way, rather than focusing on their defects and weaknesses and everything that disturbs me about other people, which will of course take away the happiness in our relationship. Maybe I should practice, like you said, in seeing other people also with that higher attitude, see them as beings with a higher consciousness. So I think you have given us quite a lot of beautiful ideas, and you shared from your heart. And thank you for also guiding us in that meditation. So what I would like to do before we close the session is just draw everyone's attention to a feedback form, which we have posted on the YouTube channel, the YouTube chat box. So if people would like to send us any questions, or if they would like to share some of their comments or feedback, you're most welcome to use that form. Also, on the Onepoint Oneness website, you will find information about all our future programs. So there's a list of topics and speakers. And you can also subscribe if you would like to get weekly reminders of the topics and the speakers. So we will continue with these sessions every Friday. And that will be 9 till 9:30 in the morning. So we will keep, or we have all the recordings on the YouTube channel. So if people would like to listen to sessions again or share these with friends, most welcome. So thank you everyone very much for joining the session today. And again, a big thank you to Neville. Next week, Friday, same time, we will have Aug Patel with us. And Ash will be talking about a mindful attitude in relationships. So thank you, everyone. And again, big thank you to Neville.
Thank you. Bye.